The English Channel, stretching 560 kilometres between Dover and Land's End. 75,000 square kilometres of sea separating Britain from mainland Europe. 1 billion tonnes of marine traffic each year. Once a historic naval battleground, now the world's busiest waterway. On the front line,
Coast Guard rescue.
elite teams, enforcing order and combating disaster as they police, patrol and rescue in the Channel 24/7.
Can you just give us an update on the casualties condition?
Coming up, it's red alert for the Royal Navy Bomb Disposal Unit as a monster unexploded Nazi war mine makes waves in Weymouth.
All positions 5 minutes from now.
The RAF fly to the rescue of a seriously injured rock climber who's crashed 15 metres down a cliff face. There's trouble at sea when RNLI rookie Harry goes on his first major shout in search of a missing person.
Well, I feel a bit nervous. New experience to me.
And the UK Border Agency's specialist rummage team dig deep for a smuggler's hidden stash.
Are they individual packets, that one?
At the MRCC in Portland, the Coast Guard receive a call informing them of an alarming discovery.
Morning, Coast Guard. Good morning.
We have investigated one spot in the inner harbour, and what is there looks suspicious. Possible ordnance.
We've just received a call from a vessel that was carrying out a survey in Portland Harbour, and they've located an object which they hauled to the surface, only to discover it was a World War II German mine. So they immediately lowered it to the bottom again, marked it, and they've just notified us.
The Coast Guard immediately put in a call to the Royal Navy Bomb Disposal Unit in Plymouth.
Chief Diver Sunday, anyone can help you?
Chief Petty Officer Cass Kasapi takes the call on the bomb disposal hotline.
C2, yeah.
The Coast Guard feed him all the available information about the 3/4-ton German parachute mine.
Right, this is a picture of the mine we got. This is what we call an acoustic GG mine. It carries 726 kilograms of explosive, so that is quite some size.
The 726 kilos of explosives packed into the rusting metal shell were designed by Nazi engineers to have the capability to flatten a row of houses. A controlled detonation of the device will require a specialist operation to take it out to sea and detonate it far away from people and property.
Right, what we'll do is we'll tow it out, straight out of that harbour entrance, and then go exactly east a mile. Once we're in that position, we'll get the diver in, and then we'll set a 5-minute fuse, and then we'll get rid of it, dispose of it there. Any questions?
No.
Right, let's go.
In the summer of 1940, the Nazi war machine invaded Britain. Hitler's plan was to take control of the English Channel. The German Luftwaffe had begun making daily bombing raids on British ships, ports and airfields in what became known as the Battle of Britain. During the course of the war, the Nazis dropped a staggering 74,172 tons of bombs. Today, many of these still potentially active explosive devices remain on the seabed, occasionally dredged up by trawlers or washed into land. When this happens, it's time to call the men of the Royal Navy Bomb Disposal Unit, an elite team of explosive operatives responsible for all diving, demolition and explosive ordnance disposal carried out within UK waters.
Well, you're dealing with explosives, an unknown factor. You just cannot rule out the chance that something could happen. Otherwise, we wouldn't be going down there with the blue lights on, the sirens, and I wouldn't be evacuating the harbour and telling everybody to move. You always treat these mines as if they knew, and that they've got the potential to do what they were designed to do.
After a 2-hour drive from their base in Plymouth, the bomb disposal unit arrive in Portland. With the clock ticking, Kasapi and his crew tool up and hit the water en route to the location of the war mine.
Anything like this is nerve-wracking because you've got a well-trained team, but you're always against the elements, the weather and the actual seabed conditions.
This is Portland Harbour Radio with a navigational warning. Explosive ordnance disposal operations in progress in Portland in harbour.
The bomb disposal unit put into action the next stage of their detonation plan. 500 kilometers around the coastline, a life or death situation is about to unfold. Royal Marine Base Chivenna is one of 12 search and rescue bases in the UK on standby 24/7, dealing with civilian emergencies. Last year alone, they had over 330 call-outs. Today, winchman Tim Thompson is on duty, and a routine training exercise is about to turn into a race against the clock to save a life. A call comes in for them to attend the scene of an accident on the Gower Peninsula.
East of Lewis Castle, about 200 metres. Casualties, companions on the cliff top.
Up and away.
A weekend climber has fallen 15 meters down a rock face and is lying in agony at the base of a cliff. Pilot John Hill has a tough call to make. The Sea King helicopter is running low on fuel. Some quick maths tells John that with 35 minutes of flying time in the tank, and with a top speed of 200 kilometers per hour, they can just about make it to the destination. He relays the critical information to winchman Tim.
You're going to have no more than 35 minutes, and that's going to be maximum before we're going to have to poke off.
As the search and rescue squad reach the Gower Peninsula, they quickly make visual contact with the injured man.
I can definitely see people squirm, it's not fine. There's something white beneath them as well, and maybe actually see the casualty here.
Okay, yeah, got them.
After falling 15 meters and bouncing down the rock face, his injuries could be life-threatening.
Yeah, visual, thanks.
Winchman Tim has clocked up an impressive 4,264 hours flying time on the Sea Kings. Today, the rescue of the fallen climber will be his 100th job for the squadron.
Fly away, pal.
Roger.
Winchman Tim,
Okay, winching out.
also a fully trained paramedic, is lowered down to the casualty to provide immediate medical attention.
Winching out. Height is good. Carrying him to the survivor.
Roger.
On the ground, steady.
Roger.
Tim sets straight to work. The helicopter stands by in the sky awaiting Tim's signal to evacuate the casualty. The Royal Navy Bomb Disposal Unit have been called in to destroy a potentially lethal 3/4-ton Nazi parachute mine. The mine has lain dormant on the seabed for over 60 years and is amongst the biggest they have ever been called in to deal with. From experience, the Navy know that these devices can still pack a lethal punch. They're not prepared to take any risks. For this reason, the harbour has been totally closed to all water traffic. A pair of patrol boats accompanies the Navy to provide a security barrier and keep unwanted vessels away. Once on the scene, preparations are made for the underwater descent to the mine.
Right, gonna start getting a dive addressed.
Before the mine can be destroyed, it has to be towed a safe distance out to sea. The floating buoys act as a marker for the mine. Joe, the diver, makes final checks on his gear.
Once the shackle's shackled on, tied up it, it's all secure. Yeah.
It's going to be his crucial and highly dangerous task to dive down to the mine and secure an inflatable balloon known as a lifting bag around it.
Okay, Joe, when you're happy and you go. The good thing about these conditions is there's no waves, there's no swell. Stand by, stop.
Triggered by a timer, the bag will inflate and raise the mine to just below the surface of the water. This means it can be safely towed out to the blast site for detonation, without any danger of it scraping against the seabed and inadvertently exploding.
Here we go.
The inflatable balloon is weighed down and lowered onto the seabed by Joe. The diver makes his descent through the water.
The diver's down there, he's touching the lifting bag. It actually brings it up at a controlled rate of descent. It doesn't just shoot to the surface, it gently brings it up, and then once it's on the surface, it'll just rest there. We'll go in and pick up the tow.
It's a tense time for the crew. They know that any contact with the mine brings with it the danger of detonation.
If it's hold while we're in the area, as we are now, a few metres away, then that'll be the end of us. Swift time.
Joe has managed to attach the lifting bag successfully and begins his ascent to the surface. Chief Kasapi orders the crew away from the scene.
All positions, this is Plymouth EOD, 5 minutes until the mine contact leaves the seabed, over.
Yeah, really good. Went down, touched line lifting bag, pulled the pin, it's time to start counting down. Off I come back up, waiting now to see Bob on the surface.
Standing by at a safe distance, they wait an anxious 5 minutes for the lifting bag to inflate and the mine to be raised to the surface.
We've probably got about a minute left now.
But the allocated 5 minutes are up, and there is still no sign of the inflatable or the mine. The failure of the lifting bag to inflate means that something may have gone wrong, and the operation has been compromised.
All positions, if it hasn't left within 10 minutes, we'll be putting a diver in to check.
The Navy are now on danger watch, knowing that the operation could be aborted. "500 kilometers around from Portland on the Gower Peninsula, Rossili rock climber Martin has taken a 15-meter tumble down a cliff face. Paramedic Tim has been winched onto site to provide immediate medical attention.
On the ground, steady.
Roger.
Hello, fella. What's your name?
Martin.
Martin. How old are you, Martin? 43-ish?
44.
Yeah? Do you know what day it is?
Martin is dazed and confused. His condition appears to be serious. He's in excruciating pain, and as with any suspected back injury, extreme care needs to be taken when attempting to move him. The Coast Guard Cliff Rescue Team and the police have already made it to the scene on foot.
We've just arrived on scene, part of the rescue team, and we're just waiting out now on the situation report as to where we go now.
On my left hip, my left
Okay, we got it.
169 mobile, this is a Rossili one. Would it be of any benefit to get all of our bodies down there, over?
Negative, got enough hands, thanks.
If we're called upon to set the gear up, we'll do it. But rather than put anyone else in possible danger for now, I think we'll just let the helicopter get on with it.
Back on the helicopter, the fuel situation is now critical.
We are going to be tight on fuel. We've only got £900 now, and we need 600 to do the trip to the hospital.
Just want to have a quick look at your chest. Now, I'm just having a little...
Okay.
That hurts in there, does it?
Martin's pain is worsening. Any attempts to move him are further compounded by the fact that he may have broken his ribs.
Got any pain in there?
Tim knows this is one medical evacuation where the patient cannot be rushed without endangering his chances of making a full recovery.
I was going to hopefully try and be quick, but what I'll do is I'm going to get a collar to put round your neck, okay, and then we're going to get a stretcher sent down.
169 from mobile on 0.
Hello, clear.
I'm going to need a Neil Robertson.
And I'll take the pelvic splint as well, please. It's going to be 15-20 minutes.
Okay. Alright then, let's get 50 on with this, because it sounds like this guy ain't in a very good way. Alright, it's good.
Winching out. On the ground, steady, steady, with the kick, steady.
But as the stretcher touches down, the fuel gauge is at a dangerously low level, and pilot John knows he has to take immediate action.
We have not got a lot of fuel to play with here. We'll have to go for fuel without Tim and then go back for him.
He takes the decision that the Sea King must leave the scene immediately and refuel at a nearby landing site.
Get this down, get some fuel, come back.
With the news on refueling relayed to Tim, John pilots the helicopter to the fuel site. Without the Sea King for support, Tim is on his own and is going to need to call on his 15 years of experience to make Martin comfortable in preparation for his extraction from the accident scene. Back over in Portland, the men of the Royal Navy Bomb Disposal Unit have a potentially explosive situation on their hands. A 3/4-ton German parachute mine has washed up in the harbour. A lifting bag, required to bring the mine to the surface so the explosive charges can be applied, has failed to inflate. The crew continue to wait anxiously.
Right, start getting a diver dressed.
Just as Chief Kasapi is about to order a rethink of the operation, the orange inflatable balloon attached to the lifting bag makes its long-awaited appearance. With the mine suspended just below the surface of the water.
Nice one, Joe. Good lad.
The crew attach the inflatable to their boat.
So that's ready to take the tow, that is now, isn't it?
We are commencing tow now. Repeat, we are commencing tow. Roger, that's all copied.
After being towed out of the harbour, the crew reach the blast site, a deep water location approximately 1.5 kilometres offshore. The Navy can't risk detonating any closer to land. The 3/4 ton of explosives means that it's capable of destroying an entire street of houses and blowing windows out up to 1.5 kilometres away. A second diver enters the water. The mine begins to drop down under the diver's careful guidance.
The diver's now going to just let the mine settle on the bottom now.
With the mine resting on the seabed, the diver straps 2 kilo packs of explosives laced with detonation cord to it.
We've laid it in its position, and this is where it'll be detonated. What's that?
One of the crew spots a helicopter above. They've entered the closed-down harbour.
Harbour control, copy.
Chief Kasapi puts in the call to get the craft out of the restricted airspace. Back at the MRCC in Portland, the Coast Guard moves the chopper on.
Can you pass a message to air traffic? There's a helicopter around the area. Is it possible you can get him to clear out the area for about the next 15 minutes while they detonate, please?
With the helicopter gone, the diver is now back on the boat, and the bomb is safely on the seabed. The operation now enters its most critical and dangerous stage. Kaz and the crew now have to rig a detonator, which will send a signal to trigger the controlled explosion of the device.
Okay, fit that on then. All positions 5 minutes from now.
All stations, this is Portland Harbour Radio. A controlled explosion will take place in 5 minutes.
Tensions run high as the clock ticks down and everyone prepares for the big bang. 50-meter plume of water fired into the air by the explosion signifies the operation is a success. A crowd watches the spectacle of the explosion, and with the detonation completed, the debris from the mine is scattered across the seabed. With the ordnance disposed of, all that's left for Kasapi and his crew to do is pack up and reflect on a job well done.
Yeah, just good operation. It was just a case of lifting the mine with my team, taking it out there as you saw, getting into a quick, safe position, and then high order, and you saw the result.
Yeah, really good. Good explosion at the end, so yeah, everyone's happy. And Portland and Weymouth harbours once again safe.
It's mission accomplished for the men of the Bomb Disposal Unit, with one less Nazi war mine posing a risk in the English Channel. Back at Rossili on the Gower Peninsula, Winchman Tim from A Flight 22 Squadron Royal Marine Base Chivenna is attending a seriously injured rock climber.
That hurts in there, does it?
43-year-old Martin has cascaded 15 meters down a cliff face and sustained potentially life-threatening injuries. The search and rescue helicopter has been forced to leave the scene to refuel, leaving Tim to help stabilize Martin. To lessen the pain, a morphine injection is administered.
Just going to pop a needle in your left hand.
Up on the cliff top, the other members of Martin's climbing party give their account of the accident to the police and Coast Guard.
We were literally just finished off the climbs, and somebody shouted up to say that, you know, he was struggling. So we sent a rope down, but by the time the rope sort of got over the surface, he'd already fallen. He was lying flat. He had a lot of blood in his face, and then obviously we had to get all the emergency services in pretty quick.
Martin, now take a couple of minutes just to start coming through, and they'll just take the edge off it. All right, mate?
I mean, I've seen somebody fall, but nothing's happened, luckily. This is the first time where an injury has occurred, and it's horrible.
Back down at the accident site, Tim sets about stabilising Martin's neck and spine. A neck brace is applied to limit movement and any further damage to his upper vertebrae.
Right, we're going to have to get you into the stretcher now. OK, mate?
Tim then attempts to apply a pelvic brace to stabilise Martin's lower back and hips.
We're going to do a little bit of moving now, right? OK?
There you go. Got that.
That's it.
Right.
Support your back, it's going to be painful.
Yeah. Where's... Right, OK, Martin, where's... OK, if that's going to hurt him that much, we'll just have to go without the pelvic support.
Put him in a stretcher now.
All right?
Good scream now.
Go.
Yeah. Go. One. Go. Go. There we go. Okay, Mark.
Okay.
That was a good little manoeuvre there.
Right, Martin, you're in now, mate.
After carefully being transferred to the stretcher, Martin is strapped in and secured.
All we can do now is just wait for the aircraft, really.
Back at Rossili on the Gower Peninsula, injured rock climber Martin has been transferred to a stretcher, and winchman Tim Thompson from the RAF has radioed for the Sea King helicopter to return to the scene and extract the casualty.
All we can do now is just wait for the aircraft, really.
Stood on the picture.
Moments later, the fully refueled helicopter arrives, waiting for the order to winch down and rescue Martin.
You ready for us, Tim? Like that. Roger.
Winching out.
Martin's potentially crippling back injuries are of great concern to Tim.
How long is it to hospital? How long is it to hospital? 4 minutes, 5 minutes. Target kid.
He has to ensure he does not lose consciousness before they can get him to the hospital.
Martin, is that pain in your back got any more?
Tim and the team work as quickly as possible.
Steady, working with a hook.
The winch must be executed carefully and precisely, not to exacerbate any potential spinal injury that Martin may be suffering from.
Right, is good.
Steady, winching in gently. Here we go, winching in. Approaching the sill. This is good speed, John.
Roger.
Top of the arm. Out. Continue.
Martin is successfully put on board the helicopter and flown directly to the hospital where a medical team stand by. As the helicopter speeds towards the hospital, Tim continues to monitor Martin's condition.
We're landing in about 2 minutes, guys, 2 minutes.
Roger. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 on the tail.
As the helicopter touches down, Martin is carefully removed by the waiting medical staff, with doctors standing by to assess the severity of his condition.
He's hurt himself, definitely. All right, Martin. But it's pleasing when it's all done. You know, you've managed to help somebody, get them to the place they needed to be. Where he needed to be was in hospital. So we managed to get that, achieved it, and he's now with the best people, getting the best care. So it's good, yeah. Definitely.
As that has gone as well as this evolution possibly could have gone. Good skills.
With the RAF search and rescue team on their way back to base, at the other end of the English Channel, a lorry on one of the many ferries entering the port of Dover has set alarm bells ringing for eagle-eyed UK border agency officials. The cross-channel port is one of Europe's busiest. Over 20,000 ferries carrying 2.3 million roll-on, roll-off freight trucks enter each year. UK border agency officials operate around-the-clock checks to combat smugglers and illegal immigrants. Today, they've stopped a Polish lorry that's arrived on a ferry from Calais. Security scans have revealed it's carrying much more than its declared load of apple juice. Its confined spaces mean it's unsafe for a conventional search. It's time to call in UKBA's specialist deep rummage team.
They are the only team that has the capability to carry out such a search.
The National Deep Rummage Team is the arm of the UK Border Agency responsible for rooting out drugs, human trafficking and weapons being shipped into the UK. The fearless rummagers lower themselves into the dark and often lethal bowels of engine rooms of commercial vessels in search of ingeniously stashed contraband. During their 6 years of active operations, they've seized over £260 million worth of Class A and B drugs, weighing in at over 12,000 kilos. Team leader Mark Jefferson is on the scene and sets to work.
Okay, here's the tanker. There's 4 separate compartments with the access points being along the top there.
Mark Jefferson assembles his team and gives them the lowdown on the search.
Right, we've got the scanner image. As everyone can see, there's packages and the front and back pots. Everyone gloved up, forensics haven't been done yet. Every chance there will be a court case at the end of this. Okay.
The lorry is a new environment for the team, but Rummager Nathan knows its confined spaces means it shares many of the hazards they confront in their usual work on board ships.
It's the first time I've ever been in one, yes. So, but it's treated exactly the same as any confined space.
The use of oxygen and breathing apparatus are key components of all deep rummage work. They allow the team to work safely and effectively in small spaces starved of oxygen, without any risk of suffocation.
After oxygen gets down below a certain level, you can actually pass out. You could take one breath and there'd be no more oxygen in your body. Your muscles have not function, your brain wouldn't function, you'd go unconscious and then die. That's it, it's as simple as that.
Rummager Nathan suits up. His colleague opens an entry hatch on the lorry through which Nathan will have to clamber to gain access.
Scoot that way up. As you can see, he's got the breathing apparatus on, so he can work away in there as long as he's happy to now.
With his safety checks on his breathing apparatus carried out, Nathan climbs into the lorry. It's an Aladdin's cave of packaged boxes, crammed into the space. Nathan begins to pass the cartons out of the lorry so they can be inspected.
Boxes of Glenton tea, which are full of Regal cigarettes. About 1,000 in here. This is obviously not apple juice. So somebody's put a false declaration in and they've smuggled a large quantity of cigarettes into the country. So now we've got to remove them and find out how many there are.
As you can see, boxes coming out at a good rate. Each box containing 1,000 cigarettes.
Cigarettes, real or fake, are some of the most popular and profitable items smuggled into the UK. Around 1.8 billion cigarettes are seized each year.
About another 1,000 in here.
Some criminals think jail terms are lower for smuggling cigarettes than drugs. But the courts can confiscate the proceeds of crimes, including houses, cash, and cars.
Confined spaces can be used to hide any number of things. In this case, it's cigarettes. Could easily have been drugs, firearms, any other illegal commodity you can think of.
As carton after carton is passed out of the lorry, the first pallet has already been stacked high with the smuggled goods, and more pallets are wheeled out to manage the expanding stash. The first compartment is emptied, and rummager Nathan comes up for a break and describes the difficulties of working in such a confined space.
It's very warm once you get going, because there's no breeze going over the top. I'm breathing the air straight through the mask, you see, so it doesn't cool down. So yeah, it's quite warm.
The rummage team are now hard at work emptying the final compartment. With all the packages removed from the tanker, the deep rummage team have reached the end of their search.
Job well done.
Yeah.
Is there 1 million there? There's got to be. Just over 1 million, I reckon.
As the team downs tools, Mark adds up the total value of the haul.
Right, we've got a grand total of 928,000 cigarettes.
That's a retail value of over £250,000.
That's us getting back to doing what we properly do, which is rummaging ships tomorrow.
As a new day dawns over Dover, the RNLI is about to embark on the search for a missing man. The Dover RNLI lifeboat crew are one of the busiest on the south coast and responded to 64 calls for help last year. Today there are some new recruits on board. One of them is 20-year-old barman Harry Hughes. It's down to Deputy Coxswain Foggy Finnis to see if the young lad is shipshape.
He's just been taken on as a probationer and he's pretty well right at the bottom of the ladder now. So he really has got quite a learning curve to go through now.
Over at the Dover Coast Guard Ops Room, Watch Manager Peter Legg receives an emergency call.
Foggy, I might have a job for you a minute. I'm just checking something out. It might be a body over the cliff. We're just getting the call now from the Dover police, but we've not really got any definites on this one yet. I'll be back to you in a minute. Okay, cheers, mate. Right, underneath the lighthouse. We should be able to bloody see it.
We've got just had reports from Dover Harbour Police.
Oh, boy.
Training time is over for rookie Harry. He's about to go on his first true shout.
Well, I feel a bit nervous. I haven't really dealt one of these before out on a boat. New experience to me. Just see how it goes, really.
with Dover Coast Guard acting as command centre.
This is Dover Coast Guard, roger. You're launching to a report of a body at the foot of the cliffs.
Peter and his team coordinate the roles of the RNLI, police and Coast Guard rescue teams to all assist in the search.
Langdon Mobile, this is Dover Coast Guard.
With no confirmation of whether the person is alive or dead, the RNLI are still very much engaged in a rescue, not recovery operation. But Foggy's 11 years of experience leave him in no doubt that the prospect of finding the person alive is very slim.
It may not be a very good result. Them cliffs are about 200-300 feet high. You don't get many good results after that. Harry, is that a Coast Guard vehicle up there?
The Langdon Coast Guard scour the cliff top for a trace of the missing person, but with still no confirmed sighting.
Right, deploy the Y boat.
Foggy takes the decision to launch the onboard Y boat. This will allow the crew to enter the shallow waters at the cliff base and conduct a close-quarters search.
The Y boat's just gone into a shoreline search. We're just going to keep our eyes open up here and through the binoculars and have a look, see if we see anything.
Onboard mechanic and communications operator James Clapham receives news from the Coast Guard of a potential sighting.
Yeah, lifeboat Yankee Dover lifeboat from Langdon Mobile, which is directly above you. If you make your way to the shore directly, the casualty is somewhere at the bottom there, over.
Right, they reckon it's around about here.
Yeah.
As the RNLI approach the famous White Cliffs, they remain hopeful that they may find the person alive.
I'm reckoning running straight in there.
Over in Dover, the lifeboat crew are continuing to assist in the search for a missing person. In order to conduct a more detailed search of the narrow shingle beach below the White Cliffs, coxswain Foggy Finnis has launched the high-speed inflatable Y-boat so his crew can access the inhospitable area.
And I think that's touchdown. John!
But we have contact over. I think we're going to have to return to Dover Lifeboat to get some equipment. It's a no hope. Over.
The condition of the body suggests that the person has been dead some time.
So the person's obviously in a very banged up way, as expected.
Lifeboat Yankee Dover lifeboat, do you require another person to be suited ready for assistance when you go back over?
Yes, please. Yeah, another person, please.
Rookie Harry is about to be put to the ultimate test.
Right, Harry, get yourself suited up. I realise this is your first body job. You gonna be all right, yeah?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay.
No amount of training can prepare someone for the grim task of recovering a dead body.
Right, so the Y-boat's coming back now. They're going to pick up a different form of stretcher with which we can recover the casualty back onto the lifeboat with.
Harry is guided by long-serving crew members John and Lee.
Harry, mind your legs. Right. If at any time you don't think you can do this, tell me. Yeah? Harry, there is no embarrassment in not being able to cope with this.
Mate, I've got to do it. Tell me what to do and I'll do it.
It's not very pleasant, but someone's got to be able to go in and pick them up, I'm afraid. There's no access by foot, so it's down to us.
What we'll do, we'll lay the body bag over him, we'll roll him into it. Yeah? Right, think of it, it's not a body. Okay? We are here to do a job, and that is to take that back so someone can bury it. Yeah? If you're going to be sick, don't be sick over the body.
We know nothing yet as to whether it's male or female. The one important thing that we do know is the person is quite dead.
The Dover lifeboat crew are well versed in dealing with this type of situation. In the past 2 years, they've assisted in 7 similar recoveries.
over Lifeboat Yankee. We have recovered the package. We are just about to return to you. All received?
Lifeboat Yankee, Dover Lifeboat, that's confirmed that the package is secure and you're returning to the lifeboat. Many thanks.
With no access to the shingle beach by foot, it's left to the Y-boat crew to transfer the body back to the main lifeboat so that it can be transported back to the shore.
She's yours. Let's get the boat secured alongside. We don't have any mishaps.
Knowing that Harry has been confronted with one of the most difficult tasks crewmen can be expected to carry out, Foggy is keen to check that he's coped with the situation.
Harry?
I still haven't found out, Harry, as to whether the body's male or female. Is it? If you need to talk about it, we'll talk. Okay, but you're all right. That's the first body you've done, isn't it?
How's it get on with things?
Sure?
Yeah.
Right, okay. This is one of those parts of lifeboating which you hope you never come across, but it happens. You know, so there's not a lot we can do about it, really. Turn the blue light off.
Coast Guard over lifeboat. For information, we've now recovered the Y-boat and the casualty and we're making our way back to Dover. Over.
For volunteer lifeboat crew, confronting life and death at sea is one of the hardest parts of the job, and one which, no matter how many years served, is never easy to deal with.
Port control Dover lifeboat, please.
Over the years, yeah, we've done a fair few, so you do tend to get used to it, but there's always things that catch you out.
With the body now back on land, Harry is typically down to earth about the whole experience.
Knowing that he's now back and safe and his family can now be put at rest, it's a relief, I suppose. But obviously, you know, it's part of what we do here, so just wait for the next page to go off and get ready for the next job.
Cliff Faller Martin broke his back and had to have titanium rods inserted.
It's going to support you back.
He's recovering and will walk again. With the Nazi war mine destroyed, Åland Harbour is open for business once more. The Polish lorry driver pleaded guilty to smuggling almost 1 million cigarettes into the UK, potentially robbing the taxpayer of £167,000 in excise duty. He was sentenced to 6 months in jail. And after his baptism at sea, RNLI rookie Harry is well on his way to becoming a fully fledged member of the Dover lifeboat crew.
It's been my third, shout. Feels good.
Next time, the RAF race to the rescue of a seriously injured teenager who needs emergency medical treatment.
Can you open this eye anymore?
On the high seas, the net tightens on a trawlerman with a suspect catch.
You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned something which you later rely on in court.
A treacherous nighttime rescue gets underway after a 30-metre cliff fall.
Thank you. No, we're not going to help you up just yet, darling.
And it's a first for the bomb disposal unit as they attempt to blow up a 1,000-ton wreck.
3, 2, 1.